Picture this. Tuesday morning, 6:47 a.m. You're standing in your own kitchen, pouring coffee into the blue mug with the chipped handle, same mug you've used for 15 years. Your wife walks in. You say good morning. She opens the refrigerator, takes out the creamer, pours it into her cup, puts it back, walks out. No nod, no glance, not a sound. Like you're a coat rack someone pushed against the wall and forgot about. You'd think something happened. A fight. A late-night argument. Something. But there was nothing. Yesterday was fine. The day before was fine. Last week was fine. This morning, you simply stopped existing in her eyes. That's what happened to me. My name is Vernon Gatlin, and I'm going to tell you how my wife of 29 years tried to erase me from my own home, on the advice of a woman who needed me gone for reasons that had nothing to do with love, nothing to do with marriage, and everything to do with a 3-bedroom house in Amarillo, Texas, appraised at $420,000. Nadine and I met at a Panhandle Engineering mixer in 1997. She was temping for the event company. 23 years old with this laugh that carried across any room. I was 26, fresh out of Texas Tech, working my first job at a structural engineering firm. I was not the loudest man in any room. Never have been. My mind runs quiet and deep, always has. I read 3 books a week back then. Kept a journal. Watched people more than I talked to them. Nadine liked that about me. You notice things other people miss, she said on our 3rd date at the big Texan steak ranch. That's rare. We married in '98. Our son Scout came in '99. Amarillo was good to us. I moved up at the firm, eventually became a senior structural analyst. Nadine tried a few things over the years. Event planning, a small catering business, a photography side gig. Nothing stuck long enough to become a career. She'd start strong, lose interest by month 4. I never said a word about it. She had a restless streak. I had a steady paycheck. It worked. Scout grew up smart and quiet, like me. Moved to Denver at 22, works in software. Calls every Sunday. 27 years old, and still remembers to call his dad. The trouble started 4 months ago, when my father had a stroke. Earl Gatlin, 78 years old, still sharp as a tack upstairs, couldn't feel his left hand. Mom was 75, couldn't manage the house alone anymore. They'd been living in the same place in Hereford, 30 miles from Amarillo, for 41 years. I'd been maintaining that house since Dad's knees went bad. Mowing the lawn every other Saturday. Fixing the gutters. Replacing the water heater last Christmas. When the stroke hit, I told Nadine we needed to bring them to us. Temporarily. Until Dad recovered. She said fine. Her exact word, fine. Not, of course, or they're your parents. Just fine. Like signing off on a cable bill. They moved in the first week of November. The first month was manageable. Mom cooked. Dad sat in the recliner by the window and read his westerns. Nadine was polite, distant, but polite. She'd eat dinner with us, clear her plate, and disappear into the bedroom with her laptop. Second month. That's when Althea Slayton entered the picture. Althea was Nadine's business partner. They'd started a home staging company together, Slayton and Gatlin Interiors. Sounded professional. In reality, they'd staged exactly 4 houses in 8 months. The business barely covered supplies. I was paying Nadine's share of the insurance and licensing fees out of my salary. I didn't complain. She was excited about something for once. But Althea started coming around more. Dinners turned into strategy sessions. Strategy sessions turned into wine on the back patio with the door closed. I'd walk past and hear fragments. You're carrying too much of his family's weight, Nadine. A woman needs space to grow. You can't grow with 3 extra people in your house. Men chase what they can't have. Trust me. I didn't think much of it then. Friends talk. Women vent. I filed it somewhere in the back of my mind and kept moving. Then December hit. December 14th. A Saturday. I came home from picking up Earl's prescriptions and found Nadine in the living room with her coat on, purse over her shoulder, laughing into her phone. That warm, open laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in weeks. Gotta go, she said, and ended the call. Then she turned and looked at me. Not through me, at me. Like she was studying something she was about to dismantle. Vernon, we need to talk about your parents. What about them? They've been here 6 weeks. When are they going back? When Dad can manage the stairs. That could be months. It could. She crossed her arms. Althea says that when a woman's home becomes a nursing facility, the marriage suffers first. Althea doesn't live here, Nadine. She doesn't have to. She can see it from the outside. Nadine picked up her keys. I'm meeting her for dinner. There's leftover pot roast. She walked out. I stood in the hallway holding a CVS bag and listening to the silence she left behind. That was the night the ignoring began. Here's how it worked. She didn't yell, didn't fight, didn't slam doors. She simply subtracted me. Monday, I said good morning. She nodded at her phone. Not at me, at her phone. Wednesday, I asked if she wanted to drive to the Christmas market on Route 66. I'm busy. Eyes never left the screen. Friday, she came home from a staging appointment, walked past me in the kitchen, past my mother at the sink, past my father in his recliner, straight to the bedroom. Closed the door. 30 seconds later, laughter through the wall. Althea's name, clear as glass. My mother turned from the dishes. Vernon, what's happening with her? She's tired, Mom. She's not tired, honey. She's performing. I didn't answer. Because I knew Mom was right, and I didn't have a response that wouldn't make it worse. Here's what you need to understand about how I'm built. I don't react fast. Never have. My mind works like structural analysis. I take in loads, stress points, every variable. I run calculations I don't know I'm running. And one day, weeks or months later, I sit down and announce a conclusion that's been forming underground, like water finding its level. Nadine used to call it my slowness. Althea, I'd later learn, called it my weakness. Neither of them understood what it actually was. Christmas. Scout flew in from Denver for 3 days. The house almost felt normal. Nadine smiled, served the ham, rested her hand on my shoulder once while I carved. Mom noticed. Dad noticed. You guys seem good, Scout said while we did dishes. Yeah, I said. Didn't elaborate. Because I knew what the next week would look like once his plane was in the air. Sure enough. December 28th. Scout's bag wasn't out the door 3 hours before the silence returned. But this time it came with rules. Vernon, I've been reading about healthy boundaries in partnership. She was sitting at the kitchen table, Althea's staging portfolio open on her laptop. I think we need to establish some. Such as, I need my mornings to myself. No interruptions before 9. No expectations. Expectations. You know what I mean. I did. She meant, don't reach for me. Don't touch me. Don't ask for anything that requires me to acknowledge you as my husband. Intimacy had already become a reward system. She gave only when I was convenient. Only when I'd been the version of me she approved of that week. Now, even that was off the table. And I think your parents need a timeline. February. Maximum. Dad can't. February. She closed the laptop. Or I start looking at apartments. Althea already sent me listings. There it was. Living on my paycheck for 29 years and threatening to leave like it was a card she could play whenever the conversation went sideways. She'd done it before, 4, 5 times over the years. But there was always the unspoken part. She needed me more than she needed the exit. Althea was giving her language to pretend otherwise. I walked to the garage, sat on the concrete floor, back against the tool cabinet. Cold seeped through my jeans and into my bones. Biscuit, our 12-year-old retriever, been with us since Scout was 15, came through the door and lay down next to me. Put her head on my thigh. Didn't move for 40 minutes. Neither did I. That was the last time I sat with the full weight of it. After that, something in my chest closed. Not anger. Something quieter than anger. A door that locks from the inside and doesn't make a sound. January. I started running. Not for health. Not for the endorphins. I needed to leave the house before she woke up. So I set my alarm for 4:45 and was out the door by 5. First morning, 2 miles down South Washington, past the livestock auction, back through the neighborhood. Home at 5:50. Nadine still asleep. By the second week, for miles. Then 5. Down 6th Street where the January wind cuts through like it owns the road. Past the old railroad depot, back along Coulter. Amarillo at 5 a.m. is a different city. Empty and enormous, the sky bruised orange along the horizon. I could think out there. I could hear my own mind without her silence pressing against it. She woke to an empty bed every morning. Took her 10 days to mention it. You're gone every morning, she said. Running. Since when? Since this month. You didn't tell me. I looked at her. She was standing in the hallway in her robe, arms crossed, that studying look again. You asked for no interruptions before 9, I said. I'm respecting your boundary. She opened her mouth, closed it, walked away. The running became something she didn't know how to fight. I wasn't punishing her. I was adapting to the shape of a life she'd cut me out of. But she couldn't tell the difference. And I had no interest in explaining it. February. Dad was walking better, slow, using a cane, but steady. Mom started talking about going back to Hereford. The old house had been in my head for weeks. 3 bedrooms, solid foundation. I'd inspected it myself a dozen times over the years. Good bones. Empty since November. I'd been paying the utilities, keeping the lawn down. I drove out one Sunday while Nadine was at a staging walkthrough with Althea. Walked through every room. My old bedroom still had the same curtain rods. The kitchen smelled like wood and dust, and something I couldn't name. Something that felt like before the silence, before the subtraction, before I became furniture in my own house. I sat on the porch for an hour. Biscuit beside me, tail thumping the boards. The wind pushed the grass flat in the field across the road. Nobody was watching. Nobody was performing. The quiet here was the clean kind, the kind that doesn't weigh anything. I didn't make any decisions that day, but something started running. A calculation I couldn't stop. February 9th. Ellis Neville called. Ellis, the closest thing I had to a best friend. 16 years at the firm together before he moved to a real estate consultancy. Steady man. Didn't talk unless he had something worth saying. Vernon, you got a minute? Go ahead. You know Althea Slayton, Nadine's partner. She approached a client of mine last month. Colleen Brewer just finalized her divorce. Althea pitched her on staging and selling the marital home. Fast flip. 60-40 split. Okay. Colleen's house was worth $380. Althea took her staging commission and a referral fee to the buyer's agent. Colleen walked away with barely enough for a rental deposit. Silence on my end. There's more. I pulled county records. She did the same thing 2 years ago with a woman named Diane Ochoa in Canyon. Same play. Befriends the wife, coaches her toward divorce, partners to flip the house. Diane's renting a 1-bedroom on Paramount now. You're telling me. I'm telling you that Althea Slayton doesn't sell houses, Vernon. She harvests divorces. My hand was steady. My voice was steady. But something behind my ribs cracked like a branch in winter. Not surprise, confirmation. The calculation had been running for months. Now it had an answer. That night, Nadine in the shower. Her phone on the kitchen counter next to the fruit bowl. Face down. The way people leave phones when they don't want the screen to catch someone else's eye. I picked it up. Passcode hadn't changed in 11 years. Scout's birthday. 3 messages from Althea were enough. Has he mentioned anything about the house being in both names? Nadine, it's both. Joint deed. Althea, perfect. Texas is community property. You get the house, we stage it, list by May. $420K minimum with those upgrades he did. That's your fresh start, girl. Nadine, what if he won't leave? Althea, he will. Phase 2 starts next week. Men who feel invisible don't fight for what they can't see anymore. I put the phone back. Same position. Face down. Fruit bowl. Walked to the garage. Stood there with my hands in my pockets. Biscuit watched me from her bed in the corner, those old amber eyes steady and patient. Phase 2, I said out loud. To the dog. To the cold concrete. To nobody. The house was always the point. I just happened to be living in it. Next morning. Parking lot at work. I called Lila Fairchild, Ellis's recommendation. Family law. Sharp. No wasted words. How long married? 29 years. Kids. 1. 27. On his own. The house. Joint. Joint deed. But I have records of every improvement. Foundation reinforcement, new roof in 2019, full kitchen renovation, garage conversion. All funded from my salary. Her financial contributions? A staging business that's never turned a profit. Mr. Gatlin, here's what I need from you. Don't confront her. Don't change your routine. And start documenting everything. I didn't change my routine. I was already invisible. The only thing that shifted was where I aimed what was left of my energy. Late February into March. The ignoring campaign hit full force. Some days Nadine wouldn't acknowledge me at all. I'd come home, and she'd be on the couch with earbuds in, staging proposals on her screen. I'd cook dinner for my parents. She'd eat alone in the bedroom. Then the cycling started. Phase 1, 4 days of absolute silence. Not a word. Phase 2, sudden warmth. She came home with takeout from Yellow City street food. Set the table for 2. Smiled at me across the plates like the last 3 months hadn't happened. I've been thinking about us, Vernon. I don't want to lose this. My chest tightened. Stay with me here. 29 years of loving someone doesn't evaporate because you've read 3 text messages. Part of me wanted to reach across that table. The part that remembered those texts kept my hand still. That's nice to hear, I said. Level. Quiet. Her smile flickered. She wanted more. Relief. Gratitude. A man chasing. She got a man eating pad thai. Next day, she tried something new. Phase 2.5. Jealousy. Althea introduced me to a developer who's interested in flipping properties together. Marcus something. He's very driven. She washed my face like a scientist waiting for a chemical reaction. Good for you, I said. He's taking us to lunch Friday. Hope the restaurant's nice. She stood there for a beat, waiting for the flinch, the question, the territorial shift. It didn't come. Not because I didn't care, because I'd already seen behind the curtain. Every move she made now looked exactly like what it was. A page from someone else's manual. Thursday night. I was at the kitchen table reviewing foundation specs for a job site. She walked in, leaned against the counter, and said, out of nowhere, "Do you even want me here, Vernon?" I looked up. She was standing exactly where she'd stood the morning this all started. Same counter, same robe, but her eyes were different. There was something behind the performance. Something real and scared. "I've wanted you here for 29 years, Nadine. You're the one who decided I wasn't worth talking to." She opened her mouth, closed it, left the room. I heard the bedroom door click shut. Then nothing. Not even whispering this time. That silence was different from the others. Heavier. Like she was sitting alone with something she didn't want to look at. But by Saturday morning, Phase 3 arrived right on schedule. Phase 3. Anger. You're different. You're distant. You're treating me like I'm the problem. I'm treating you the way you asked to be treated. With boundaries. That's not. She caught herself. Swallowed whatever she was about to say and reloaded. Maybe we should see a counselor. Maybe. I'll ask Althea for a recommendation. No. No. If we see someone, I find them. Not Althea. Why? Because Althea is not interested in saving this marriage, Nadine. And I think somewhere underneath all of this, you already know that. She went pale. Not embarrassed. Caught. The kind of white that starts at the throat and climbs. She left the room. 30 seconds later, whispering through the wall. Althea's name sliced through the drywall like it wasn't there. Phase 4 came 2 days after that. The sweetest one yet. She appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing the blue dress from our anniversary 3 years ago. Hair down. Perfume I hadn't smelled in months. I made reservations at Macaroni Joe's. Just us. Like we used to. I looked at her. The woman I married was in there somewhere, wearing that dress like armor. And the part of me that remembered slow dances in that kitchen at midnight, that part wanted to say yes. But I also knew that somewhere in her phone was a message thread with timelines, phases, and an appraisal number. And this dress, this dinner, this version of Nadine, it was Phase 4. Charm offensive. Reel him back in before he drifts too far. "I'm eating with my parents tonight," I said. "Dad's trying a new medication. I want to be there." The dress stayed on for another 40 seconds. Then she went upstairs to change. I heard the hanger hit the closet rod hard enough to rattle. March. I moved my parents back to Hereford. Not because of Nadine's deadline, because the house was ready. I'd spent weekends getting it right. New handrails in the bathroom. Non-slip strips. Dad's recliner by the front window. Same spot. Same view of the street. Mom cried when she walked into the kitchen. "You're a good son, Vernon. Just a son who should have done this sooner." What I didn't tell them, I'd started sleeping there too. Not every night, but more nights than not. Finish work, run my route through Amarillo, shower at the Hereford house, eat with my parents, fall asleep in my old twin bed. Something about that small bed felt honest. Like the right amount of space for a man recalibrating. Radio on the drive one morning. Something about that Fox News settlement, the Dominion case they'd been going back and forth on. I wasn't following it closely, but the announcer said something that stuck. Sometimes the truth just costs more than people plan to spend. I almost laughed. Nadine noticed I was gone by day 3. "You didn't come home." "Parents' place." Again. "The house needs work." "The house always needs work." "What about our house, Vernon?" I let the silence sit. Long enough for her to hear what lived inside it. "Our house is fine," I said. "It'll be fine without me, too." March 11th. She showed up at the Hereford house. Unannounced. 7 in the evening. I was on the porch with Dad, watching the last light bleed out of the sky. Biscuit between us, ears up. Nadine got out of the car and stood in the yard, arms crossed against the wind. Vernon, this is ridiculous. Is it? You're living at your parents' house like you're 18. I'm living where I'm welcome. That landed. I saw it register. Not just the words, but the shape of what I was saying. She'd made our home unwelcoming. I'd found another one. Cause and effect. Load and displacement. Come home, she said. Softer. Phase 2 kicking in. Why? Because we're married. We are. And you've spent 3 months pretending I don't exist. I was trying to, she caught herself. Trying to what, Nadine? Althea said if I gave you space, you'd come back on your own. That men need to feel the absence before they chase what they can't have. I finished. That's the theory. She nodded. Small. Like someone repeating advice they believed, but never tested. I've been running 5 miles every morning since January. I said. You know what I see at 5 a.m.? Couples walking dogs before sunrise. Old men waving from porches. People awake because they choose to be, not because they need to escape their own kitchen. I paused. I stopped chasing a long time ago, Nadine. Not because I stopped loving you. Because you made loving you feel like a test I kept failing. Her eyes filled. Real this time. Not performance. Not phase 2. A woman standing in a yard in Hereford, Texas, feeling the weight of a strategy that had already cost her everything it promised to win. But I had to finish. I know about the house. What about the house? I know Althea's plan. Stage it, list by May. 420 minimum. Your fresh start. All the color left her. I saw the messages. I know about Diane Ochoa. I know about Colleen Brewer. I know what Althea does to marriages, Nadine. I know exactly what she was doing to ours. She's my friend, Vernon. She's not your friend. She's your investor. And you were her next property. Nadine sat on the porch step. Not dramatically, just sat. Like her legs made a decision her mind hadn't caught up to. My father spoke from his chair. Quiet as a hymn. That woman wasn't trying to save your marriage, Nadine. She was trying to sell your house. The sound Nadine made wasn't crying. Not exactly. It was the sound of someone realizing the floor they'd been standing on was never solid. And the person who'd been holding it up, the one they'd been ignoring, had quietly stepped aside. I didn't console her. I had nothing left for a woman who'd practiced my disappearance as a strategy. But I wasn't cruel. I brought her a glass of water, set it on the step. Went back to my chair. Some things you can't unbreak by being kind. You can only be decent while they shatter. The paperwork was clean. Lila documented every improvement, every bill, every licensing fee for a business that never turned a cent. Judge Wes Osborne reviewed the case in April. Fair. Straightforward. I kept the Amarillo house, the one I'd reinforced, re-roofed, rebuilt with my own hands and my own calculations. Nadine received her share of the equity. Less than Althea promised her. More than I wanted to give. Althea stopped answering Nadine's calls the day the petition was filed. Gone. Like a contractor who finishes the demo and disappears before the rebuild. That told Nadine everything I'd been trying to say, in a language she finally understood. Scout called me on a Tuesday night, 3 weeks after everything settled. Dad, you all right? Better than I've been in a while. Mom called me. She's confused. I know she is. She said you changed. I didn't change, Scout. I just stopped waiting for someone to notice I was still in the room. April. Saturday morning. The Hereford porch, my porch now, in every way that mattered. Dad inside with a Louis L'Amour. Mom making biscuits. Biscuit. The dog, not the bread, sprawled at my feet in a square of morning sun, ears twitching at something only she could hear. My phone buzzed. Text from Nadine. I should have talked to you. Not to her. I'm sorry. I looked at it for a while. Watched the wind push the grass flat in the field across the road. Same as it did the first Sunday, I sat here and felt something shift underground. A calculation finishing, water finding its level. I typed back. I know. Not forgiveness. Not a door reopened. Just an acknowledgement that she was still in there somewhere. The woman who'd laughed across a table at the Big Texan 30 years ago. She'd gotten buried under someone else's strategy, someone else's commission. And I'd gotten buried under her silence. Her friend said men chase what they can't have. So Nadine started ignoring me. Thought the absence would make me desperate. Thought I'd come running back with my heart in my hands. She was half right. I did chase something I couldn't have. Just wasn't her. It was the quiet. Not the heavy kind. Not the silence that presses on your chest when someone pretends you're not in the room. The other kind. The kind that sounds like a screen door creaking, a page turning, a dog sighing in the sun. The kind that feels like breathing. I took a sip of coffee. Biscuit rolled onto her back. Dad turned a page. Some mornings are just enough. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.